I don't know what percentage chance to put on it, but it is not zero chance,
with the gun
and it's
ban,
not,
the challenge in the federal courts.
30% chance. I think it's better than that we will win. I don't know what percent to put on it. I just think that we have a pretty good argument.
I think we really need to put everything on pause until we see if the gun ban holds, because if time goes on and the gun ban is eventually struck down, people start submitting these affidavits, whatever else, what happens to all that information?
Well, we have quite the news update out of California and kind of a forecast of how that could impact Illinois when it comes to gun and magazine bans. Welcome in. Happy Friday. It is Bishop on Air. I'm Greg Bishop. Be sure to follow me anywhere. Just search Bishop on Air on X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook as well, and YouTube, where you can like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, but you can watch us streaming live there across the spectrum. So appreciate everybody tuning in. And also I appreciate everybody who's sending me pictures of you receiving your patches, your Bishop on Air patches, which sent out earlier this week. People already starting to get them. Love seeing the pictures of people putting them prominently in their office. One guy says that he puts it next to his computer to remind him to listen. So I appreciate everybody for taking part in that fun experiment. More to come. All right, so we'll see what we can make happen. But obviously, we've got big news when it comes to the California semi-automatic ban that a judge in federal court for the Ninth Circuit, they decided to strike down California's ban. So the Second Amendment Foundation, one of the plaintiffs in that case, they made that announcement yesterday afternoon that federal judge Robert Benitez, he ruled against the state of California's gun and magazine ban. Looking at some of the rationale here, they do break down and look at this 76-page document, which actually it's a 79-page document that Benitez essentially ruled against the state of California. And you can take a look at the case number and look that up in various circles where you might be able to actually go and read this yourself. But you can obviously get a good review of how the case plays out. And in particular, the Second Amendment Foundation highlights that Benitez wrote, falling back on an old recycled justification, the state says its ban should stand because a person can have as many other rifles, shotguns, and pistols that one wants. But the argument being that you can't go ahead and start banning all kinds of books because, well, there's other books available. So obviously, we saw the next step. And the next step is breaking news here. Last night, the state of California decided to appeal the lower court's judge ruling. So they did have this on the docket for this particular case out of California, and it says that the appellants, in their official capacity as Attorney General of the state of California, do hereby appeal to the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit for the circuit court's decision and permanent injunction. Because what the lower court did, Judge Benitez, he issued a permanent injunction, not a preliminary injunction, a permanent injunction, but he gave the state 10 days to reply in a possible appeal, which they did last night. So that's the latest there. How is this going to impact Illinois' case? It's a great question because we've seen other instances, and I'm pouring sweat over here. I'm still working this out, right? I'm doing the home studio thing, and I'm trying to get a good workout in the mornings, but man, that shower is just not taken. So appreciate everybody putting up with me this morning on a Friday. Hey, look at that. But regardless, how is this going to impact Illinois' gun and magazine ban? It's a great question because we've seen other instances of cases out of the Ninth Circuit being used by plaintiffs in Illinois to say, hey, there's supplemental authority in this particular jurisdiction against laws limiting Second Amendment rights, from a butterfly knife ban to the California case regarding magazines that Judge Benitez recently ruled on, to even out of Texas, a different jurisdiction, where you've got a federal judge there taking issue with, for instance, pistol braces or with other types of, unfinished lower receivers and such. Now, all those are tied up in the courts, but the plaintiffs in Illinois have been pointing back to those lower court rulings saying, hey, this is supplemental authority for the courts to consider as they think about what they're going to do with Illinois' gun and magazine ban. So what about the trajectory here? You've got, of course, the California state appealing the lower court's ruling on the gun and magazine ban there. You've got the Governor Gavin Newsom making a statement that this is why we need to have a constitutional amendment, he says, to enshrine the rights of people to remain safe. So that seems to be a recognition of sorts that you need to change the Constitution if you want to prohibit people from having firearms. So you've got Newsom doing that. Man, I am just pouring sweat. What is going on? Fantastic. But you've got the governors pushing for the change to the Constitution. Governor J.B. Pritzker in Illinois, flashing back. Remember that fireside chat he had not long ago? Here's just some of what he had to say there, discussing gun control, acknowledging that the federal courts seem to be leaning a certain way.
I don't know what percentage chance to put on it, but it is not zero chance,
with the gun
it is
ban,
not,
the challenge in the federal courts.
30% chance. I think it's better than that we will win. I don't know what percent to put on it. I just think that we have a pretty good argument, and it's demonstrated by the quality of the bill that got passed and signed here in Illinois, and the commentary of the appellate court judges.
And that commentary of the appellate court judges in the Seventh Circuit, if you recall, it was something to the effect of, just because there's a lot of these doesn't mean that, it's a popularity contest. Say a lot of people have AR-15s. Does that mean everybody can have one? Say a lot of people have rocket launchers. Should everybody be able to have one? That was an argument that was made in the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals about Illinois' gun and magazine ban. But recall, I did ask the governor right around the state fair this past summer as to, if he knew that the law would have a little bit better than a 30% chance or so of winning in the federal courts, why would he sign it? And here's what the governor had to say.
Why sign the law if you had, if you know that it's a little bit better than 30% chance of survive?
I don't think that's exactly what I said. I was trying to articulate, though, that you just don't know what's going to happen in the federal courts, and that as of late, the appointees to the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, are people who unfortunately want to take away the rights of parade goers and people who live in our neighborhoods to live safely and to not have assault weapons that are attacking their local communities. So I want to be clear. I don't know what the outcomes are going to be in court cases until they come out. I did not know until you just mentioned it that the Illinois Supreme Court is going to come out with their decision tomorrow. I'm hopeful, but no idea how they'll resolve it. It does matter what happens at the state level and state court, but ultimately the Supreme Court likely will be ruling on this. And so whatever happens there will ultimately, I hate to use the word trump, whatever happens in our state courts.
So again, the governor acknowledging that it's really going to be the federal court system where any potential true outcome happens. But Pritzker, again, early flashback to that fireside chat he had. He gave a little bit of insight into his understanding of the federal court's feelings, and at least in the Seventh Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals that covers Illinois.
And I think here's my optimism. We know what the Supreme Court looks like these days, but I have some optimism that we may be successful, because in the appellate court in Chicago, asking questions of the plaintiffs about the issue of whether or not, the case was being made that the Supreme Court ruling, Bruin, had essentially said, well, gee, if it's in common use, then a gun should be allowed. And that you can't ban something that's in common use. And they were making the case that, well, AR-15s, for example, are in common use because there are millions of them across the United States. And the two judges essentially responded by saying, so it's a popularity contest now? If you can get a gun out there in enough people's hands, all of a sudden it becomes okay for everybody to have one of these weapons that can kill, dozens of people in a very short period of time.
So again, the governor indicating that he doesn't want this to be a popularity contest just because there's a proliferation of certain types of semi-automatic firearms. The gun control side says that shouldn't be the impetus. And one of the things is the term dangerous and unusual, or dangerous or unusual. And a lot of people who are watching some of the other news channels out there, especially focused on the Second Amendment, will get a master class. For instance, Four Boxes Diner does a great job of breaking this down, so you can find them on YouTube. But the idea of dangerous and unusual and dangerous or unusual, and the standard is dangerous and unusual, can be something that ultimately could be restricted. And you got to think that could be like some kind of device that's really put together ratty-tatty and just might cause a lot of harm, versus something that's precision, that's crafted, that's high-end modern manufacturing, like an AR-15, for instance. So obviously there's some questions about if it's dangerous and unusual, dangerous or unusual, but that, quote, popularity contest issue is also in question in the courts. Now, here locally in Illinois, of course, we still have the gun and magazine ban in place. People are registering, as we saw, another 560 some odd people registering in the second week that the gun registry is open. But you've got that deadline of January 1st coming, where if you don't register, you could face criminal penalties. State Senator Jason Plummer, in a conversation I shared with you earlier this week, talked about his legislation to hold people harmless who purchased weapons during a 6-day window when the federal court in Illinois enjoined the state from enforcing the gun and magazine ban. He says that you just got to put everything on hold right now, especially with how this is playing out across the country in federal courts, likely in the U.S. Supreme Court.
Between, I believe it was April 28th and May 4th, a federal court ruling injunction blocked implementation of this gun ban. During that period of time, many Illinoisans went out, legally purchased firearms, and did business with local gun shops, whatever else. When that ruling came out, when that federal ruling came out that blocked the implementation of the law, I immediately reached out to the governor's office, the attorney general's office, the Illinois State Police. I know a lot of other people did as well, to seek guidance so that we could provide information to gun shops, to gun owners, to potential gun owners, because we were getting a lot of questions from constituents. The Illinois State Police did get right back to us, and they deferred to the Attorney General. And the Attorney General and the Governor's office provided absolutely no information, silence, complete crickets for a week, when they needed to be providing information and guidance to their constituents, to the citizens of Illinois. On May 6th, the Attorney General finally did issue guidance after that injunction was removed. And they stated that firearms that were included in the ban that were purchased or picked up during that window would be illegal starting January 1st, 2024. So, when a ruling went against the governor and the attorney general, they went silent, and they allowed thousands of Illinoisans to go out, exercise their constitutional right. And then when the ruling was, or when the injunction was removed, they were immediately dropping information, basically saying, we're coming after everyone who exercised their constitutional rights during that week. And I just think that's wrong. Again, regardless where you stand on the gun issue, pro or con, it's the job of the governor, it's the job of the attorney general to treat all Illinoisans equally and to provide them information, not set them up to be penalized for doing what millions of people do, every year across the country. I believe the governor and the attorney general, their allies, should support this legislation so we can at least protect these people who conducted business for that period of time, April 28th to May 4th. But more importantly, I think we really need to put everything on pause until we see if the gun ban holds. Because if time goes on and the gun ban is eventually struck down, people start submitting these affidavits, whatever else. What happens to all that information?
Again, that information, it would still be in databases somewhere. So people registering firearms with the prospect that the gun and magazine ban in Illinois could be struck down, not just, heading to the U.S. Supreme Court from the 7th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals, but if they indeed rule either way, expect it to be appealed up. But you've also got a possible injunction that could happen in the Southern District of Illinois from Southern District Judge Stephen McGlynn. So we'll be watching all of that. And don't forget as well, we'll be watching what's happening with the Myers v. Kelly case. That's the FOID card case that apparently is staying in the Southern District, at least the FOID card challenge. The second count about venue limits, that's being kicked back to the state courts, so we'll watch what happens there. But ultimately, there's a lot more to come on all of this. So big news, of course, yesterday out of California, a federal judge striking down the state's gun and magazine ban there. Likely that's going to be used as, hey, look over here to the 7th Circuit and see what the 9th Circuit did. Rule appropriately. That's what the plaintiffs are going to ask to try to influence the Illinois case. But also late in the evening yesterday, you had the state of California file a notice of appeal to the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals, where they ultimately are going to try to get I imagine, a stay on the injunction that the federal judge in California issued. So that's where we're at, and we'll keep an eye on that for you. Be back with more on that on Monday, no question about it. So be sure to like, subscribe, follow me anywhere. Just search Bishop on Air. Yesterday, we told you about the Department of Healthcare and Family Services announcing to the Illinois Joint Committee on Administrative Rules that they were rapidly approaching the cap for the amount of non-citizen migrants who can register in the health benefits for immigrant seniors program. That's set to cost taxpayers more than $550 million. At least that's the cap. But the governor says now that they're going to halt future enrollees into that program. Thanks again for hanging out. It's Bishop on Air. You can find me here. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter. And that gets the latest of what we're turning around. But when you've got the issue of taxpayer funding for non-citizen health care in Illinois, background here before we get to the details of just exactly how they went about and announced they're going to suspend the rules for allowing certain types of non-citizen migrants over the age of 65 to take part in taxpayer-subsidized health care coverage in the state of Illinois. But before we do that, I do want to point to some of the unrest that seems to be percolating up in Chicago, especially when it comes to migrant base camp tents. If you guys didn't see this on X, formerly known as Twitter, you've got frustrations showing on the streets. So you've got an alderwoman who showed up to an area where there was going to be a base camp for the migrants, and you had news outlets, Block Club Chicago, on the scene showing that indeed there was a lot of unrest. And just looking at some of these pictures and the photos, it's pretty remarkable as you've got a very ethnically diverse group of people protesting a planned base camp for migrants in Chicago. And even the video that they shared was pretty remarkable. So if you get a chance, you might want to check that out. Colin Photo on X. And you can even just sit back and see even more of that. So that's obviously some of the sentiments on the streets in Chicago as they deal with ongoing issues of more than 16,000. I think now more than 18,000 is what I saw. Number of non-citizens arriving in Chicago and getting a variety of subsidized benefits, housing, and even health care in some instances. So looking at the healthcare costs, again, if you're following along here on the live stream, you'll see that you can go and check out actual documents from the Healthcare and Family Services to look at, for instance, the enrollment analysis and just the upward trajectory there of how many people are enrolled. And obviously you get to a point where it's going to hit that 16,500 cap. And that's 16,500 seniors who are enrolled in Illinois' taxpayer-subsidized program. So the Illinois Department of Healthcare and Family Services yesterday announced that indeed they're going to have to halt further enrollees in the healthcare benefits for immigrant seniors program because they're ready to reach that 16,500 cap. So that's something else that could that come up Remember, veto session starts next week. We're going to hear a lot about what's going on at the Illinois State House. A lot of different things, everything from energy policy to even gun control. But will more funding for non-citizens in Illinois come up? Something else I talked with State Senator Jason Plummer earlier this week on, just to revisit that. Here's what he had to say.
It hasn't gone anywhere, Greg. I know that there's people in Illinois, I know there's people in Springfield that do not want to talk about that issue, but the issue hasn't gone anywhere. And it is a real problem, and it's a problem of the governor's making, and they have not figured out a solution to resolve it yet. We are putting huge stresses on our healthcare community. We're putting huge stresses on social service providers, on schools, and the governor and his allies created this mess, and we will do everything we can to help them out of it. But you kind of got to acknowledge the problem first, and they seem incapable of doing that. This is going to cost us billions of dollars that we do not have, and it's going to lessen opportunities and lessen services for tax-paying citizens of the state of Illinois.
So obviously the amount of tax dollars going out already, drawing away from other resources going to taxpayers to help with a variety of other things, but some still pushing for even more subsidies for health care. A group called Healthy Illinois released a statement about the Illinois Department of Healthcare and Family Services suspending, starting November, I think, 3rd it is. They're actually going to be suspending new enrollees pretty rapidly here. Let me see if I can pull that back up. Regardless, in a few weeks, we're going to see that suspension of the Healthcare and Family Services benefit there. But Healthy Illinois, they put out a statement saying while they expected the announcement, it's still disappointing and a step backwards for the collective progress of Illinois making towards healthcare access. The Health Benefit for Immigrant Seniors program provides vital life-saving healthcare services to thousands of vulnerable adults across Illinois after a series of other significant program changes in the past year, like, for instance, not offering it to those 42 and over, for an example, but also the cost sharing efforts through copays or other ways to try to save taxpayer costs. But after a series of other significant changes in the past year, pausing enrollment for HBIS with short notice will not only limit access to critical healthcare services, but it will also significantly diminish the state's ability to care for its elderly residents. We strongly encourage seniors who may qualify for the program to enroll immediately before the November 6th cutoff date. So no more new enrollees after November 6th. So there you go. That's the latest status on the healthcare subsidies for non-citizen migrants in the state of Illinois. And obviously that's going to be possibly something that comes up during fall veto session. What else could come up during fall veto session? Well, stay tuned. We'll have a little bit of a preview on that here with Bishop on Air. I'm Greg Bishop. Follow me anywhere. Just search Bishop on Air. Also check out the website, bishoponair.com. It's kind of a central place where you can find even more about me. And thanks again to everybody who's sending me pictures of where you're prominently displaying your Bishop on Air patches. That's very cool, and I'm humbled. There's no question about it. So be sure to like, subscribe, and get the latest, all right? Hey! Session starts Tuesday. If you're not familiar with how State House action plays out, well, if you're tuned in, I'm going to be on the ground giving you all the latest. So be sure to like, subscribe. I've got over 7,000 subscribers, guys. It blows me away, and it just continues to grow. So keep spreading the word, because I think it's crucial people know what's going on with their state government. There's a lot of focus on what's going on in D.C. No question there's a lot of focus of what's going on over in the Middle East or with Russia and Ukraine. But I don't know if people realize just how impactful local and state government are. And one of my goals, and quite frankly a passion of mine, is to disseminate information to people and to let them know what's going on. Thankfully, I get paid to do it, and it's something that I enjoy doing. But you guys out there, you're working your own jobs, your own careers. You've got your own families, and you can't pay attention. But I'm going to hopefully provide that portal for you to stay plugged into what's going on with play-by-play action at the Illinois State House with fall veto session. So follow me, follow the other organizations that I'm a part of. My full-time gig, of course, is the Center Square Illinois Radio Network. Definitely think about donating to the Center Square, a nonprofit news organization. So you can do that, and just stay tuned, of course, for Bishop on Air updates as well, because we'll be kind of talking each day about recapping what's going on at the Illinois State House for fall veto session. But fall veto session's coming up. It's 3 days scheduled for legislative action next week, and then 3 days the second week of November. Those are the final 6 days scheduled for the year, and there's a lot they got to do. Not only do they have to, deal with vetoes that the governor made, including a veto of lifting the moratorium on nuclear power. You've got vetoes dealing with food service for schools and a variety of other things, but you've also got questions about the Invest in Kids school scholarship program. You've got questions about healthcare subsidies for non-citizen migrants. You've got a whole host of other things that could come up during fall veto session, including something else we'll keep an eye on, the issue of orders of protection and whether or not police are going to be required to confiscate firearms if there's an OP issued. So those are all things that we could look at for fall veto session. But one of the big things, obviously, up front is going to be how to deal with power, energy, and the state's ongoing, struggle with coal-fired versus nuclear versus solar, wind, and other new types of alternative energy policies. Here's Governor J.B. Pritzker yesterday talking about what could happen with the nuclear moratorium that passed to lift the moratorium, but he vetoed that bill. He seems open to the idea of lifting it, but he says the language just has to be right.
I think it'll be similar, but one of the challenges in the original bill, and it's what I wrote in my veto message, and I wish I could have mandatorily vetoed it, but it was just written in a way that I couldn't, is that it was focused in part on allowing large-scale nuclear plants to be built in Illinois, and that's not what the bill was originally intended to be about. We do want to see small modular reactors, as they become available, allow us to build factories, manufacturing, other things that need a lot of power in central and southern Illinois, where nuclear power isn't normally available and where you'd have to draw some significant transmission lines to those locations. You don't need that with SMRs. So that's what I want to see introduced. It hasn't been introduced, that, as far as I know, an amended bill, and that's what I would sign.
So again, the governor indicating what he would sign with some kind of lifting of the nuclear moratorium. So that'll be a focus for fall veto session. Another focus for fall veto session could be things that he didn't even deal with a veto. One, the Invest in Kids school scholarship program. That's a program that came about during the Rauner administration, a Republican governor who had a Democrats-dominated legislature, and part of the school funding reform that they brought about in 2018, 2019, had a provision to allow for school choice. And the Invest in Kids school scholarship program is the state's only school choice program, but it's set to expire at the end of this calendar year. The program's helped out thousands of families that are not happy with their kids' public school. They feel their kids' public school's failing them for whatever reason, be it they need special needs or, they're just not being challenged enough or whatever the case may be, but they're of a family of lesser means. So the Invest in Kids school scholarship program allows for those families to be able to, have their chance to have school choice. So private dollars, and this is the thing about the Invest in Kids school scholarship program, it's not tax dollars, it's private dollars going to funds that then are used to give to these families. Those private dollars who donate to the fund get a 75% Illinois income tax credit on those donations. The program's capped at $100 million, so there can't be more than $100 million donated. People push back on this and say that it's taking away from tax dollars by having these types of credits involved. But the public schools and the teachers unions, they have messages out there that indicates they're not too happy with the idea of allowing for these types of subsidies. They see it to draw away from public schools. So the teachers union actually putting out a statement saying that they believe that the Invest in Kids voucher scheme acknowledges that more white students have been helped by the program than anyone else, even though proponents, the teachers union says, have tried to tout the program as helping black and brown students. So you're going to hear a lot about this in the veto session. Governor J.B. Pritzker, though, he says that, yeah, the program's getting set to expire at the end of this year in the middle of a school year, and you got to imagine what that does to kids, but he says he's open to approving some kind of extension for the Invest in Kids school choice scholarship program. Here's the governor, and fire away.
Said that, and I think both sides are lobbying the various folks in the General Assembly. I will support it if it comes to my desk to extend the program in whatever form. I mean, I can't imagine it would show up in some form that I would be unwilling to. But again, the reality is that the legislature needs to go through this process, and I've said that from the very beginning.
Have you heard if those conversations are ongoing? If we could see one of those proposals come
I have not. I've heard that, just read in the news that there's some language that's been proposed, but I actually have not seen a bill introduced, and I think that's where the rubber meets the road.
It really is, because, they built into the Invest in Kids Act a sunset of December 31st, 2023, and now they've got to either lift that sunset or make it permanent, or they put another sunset 5 years down the road, or however they want to make that happen. So it's really up to the legislature. Again, back to the conversation I had with State Senator Jason Plummer. He also addressed the Invest in Kids school scholarship program.
I hear the other side always talk about opportunity, and they always talk about difficult circumstances people are stuck in. Well, the most difficult circumstances anyone is stuck in is kids that are forced to go to failing schools, who don't get the education that they need and the education they deserve, the education that the taxpayers of Illinois paid for. It amazes me when I see how much money is spent on education, how much money goes to some of these schools, and they utterly fail in educating future generations. I think it's tragic. I think it's immoral. I think it's sad. And we need to make sure that kids are given an opportunity in Illinois. And the best way to make sure kids are given an opportunity in Illinois is to give them the right to go to a school that's going to provide them the tools that they need to be successful, the tools that they need to compete. And too many kids are getting pushed out of schools, graduated out of schools, without the skills and the knowledge they need to be successful. And I think that's tragic. So I hope that Republicans and Democrats can put their partisan beliefs to the side. I hope they can look at the issue at hand, and the issue at hand is not enough kids in Illinois are getting the education they need to compete in today's economy.
And that's, a lot of different factors involved, be it the quality of the teachers, be it the lack of resources, some say. But when you look at how much, say, Chicago public schools get per student, it's like $23,000 per student. The state average is $16,000 per student. And you look at some of the more rural areas, and you've got about $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 per public school student. So obviously there's $10 billion going to public schools in Illinois. The argument some make, schools are failing children. The public school teachers unions say we need more resources to not fail the students, while you've got others who are saying school choice is really the only way. Is it going to be, morphing into a voucher type of system? Is it going to be keeping with this type of school scholarship type system? Or how exactly are you going to be able to do this? Making, for instance, your tax dollars follow your students? So obviously that's an ongoing conversation. Who knows how much of that's going to be dominating the fall veto session, but you got 6 days left. All right, 6 days left of state legislative session for this calendar year before some big things happen, right? And again, energy, obviously, is going to be an issue. Will the migrant crisis be an issue? Will Invest in Kids be a focus? What about gun control? You've got that orders of protection measure that could come up during fall veto session. And that would require police to confiscate firearms if there's an OP. Right now, somebody who has an OP against them can transfer their firearms to somebody else. It doesn't have to be police. So that's going to be a contentious issue as well. But then you also have other things like Senator Plummer's bill to require that individuals who purchased firearms in a 6-day window, there was an injunction against the state's law banning these firearms. Will that come up? Will that measure that Senator Plummer wants to hold people harmless for, instead of having them possibly face having to get rid of their thousands of dollars in investments, or, face potential felony charges? All of these things we will be monitoring. And if you like, subscribe, and follow, we'll definitely be updating you each and every weekday morning. Happy Friday, everybody. Greatly appreciate you tuning in. Thank you so much for hanging out. Be sure to, let me know when you get your patch, all right? Because I want to see the pictures. It's pretty rewarding seeing how many of you out there are tuning in every weekday morning. So, hey, I think 7:30 is kind of a sweet spot. I think that might be when we go live. But I'm telling you what, I'm either going to have to get up just a smidge bit early. It's been nice sleeping in. But, man, if I work out before coming onto the camera, that shower does not take. That shower does not take. So I might have to either work out after I hang out with you guys in the mornings, or whatever the case may be. That's just a bit of vanity coming out here on the live broadcast. Bishop on Air. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of the day. Let me know you got your patches. Email me anytime, bishoponair@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, whatever. Just, hang out with me, all right? It's Bishop on Air. Happy Friday.